Hello there, and welcome to another episode of The Metagame, the live streaming show right here on the Dice Tower, where we are going to talk about a topic about board gaming and sometimes talk about the act of talking about board gaming, hence the metagame part. Fortunately, though, this episode is not just me yammering into the faceless void of the webcam sitting on my monitor. This is a discussion with you, the live streaming YouTube audience. So I want to say welcome to everyone who's there. And as soon as we get a confirmation that you guys can both see and hear the words coming out of my mouth, we'll get started with the show. Oh, thank you, Trevin, that the audio and video is okay. So let's start. So today's episode, we're going to jump right into as soon as I tell you how this works, in case you're watching for the first time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present a topic about board games, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to the YouTube chat to kind of get your questions, comments, statements, stories, anything that you think is relevant to the conversation that you want to add to the chat. You guys are welcome to, and I'll read it off and respond to it however is appropriate. If you are in the live streaming chat and you have some words to say, make sure to add the hashtag that is hidden by the video, which won't be hidden by the video for a second. There we go. Use the hashtag TMG for the metagame in your YouTube chat statement, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my web browser's search tool to search the chat window for that hashtag. It'll make those chat statements rise to the top and be highlighted, and those are the ones that are going to get my attention. So if there is no further ado, we'll get right into today's topic, which we will discuss together, which is there real value in being an omnigamer? Lots of times people will talk negatively about I've heard them referred to as like grognards or hardcore war gamers, or just anyone who likes one type of board gaming and never deviates from that genre. And like I said, lots of times that is spoken about in a negative light. And you know, I've always thought, oh yeah, variety is good. For example, I myself, I consider myself an omnigamer. I kind of, any type of game that comes across the table, I'm willing to try out most any game that comes along, any genre of games. I personally think it's because I find that I enjoy the activity of the gaming oftentimes more than the mechanisms of the game itself. I'd say it's probably a 75-25% split there. So I'm wondering if that's just me or how widespread that approach is. But regardless, what it turns out to is I consider myself an omnigamer, and I'll try lots of things, which turns out to be good. Because as I was making the notes for this episode, I discovered that there's 4 main playing groups that I find that I play with. And each of those groups definitely has their own individual tastes. For example, the largest local gaming club in town here definitely leans towards Euro games. In fact, until I got involved with this gaming group, I kind of thought Eurogaming was kind of on the fringe. I thought Ameritrash games were, you know, lots of dice, lots of luck, lots of stories, lots of hooting and hollering, and lots of little plastic pieces to push around the board. I actually thought that was more the norm for, you know, just everyone in a way. And when I got involved, I had a little bit of a culture shock with this gaming club, because there's a lot of quiet, intense Euro gaming that goes on. And I would say at least 80% of the games that hit the table have kind of this worker placement, resource management, you know, Euro game aspect and feel to it. And that is the preference of the group. And it's the biggest group in town. So I was really surprised to see so many people that shared that common interest. And, you know, it was just my own personal naivete about it. But so that was kind of my introduction, because growing up, the second group I play with most are the people from the small town I grew up with when I get together with them. And that's a lot of cooperative party games and card games a lot. even when it delves into board games, I know Dominion and Seven Wonders are some of the games that hit the table there most often. So a lot of cooperative, a lot of working together against the game. Some backstabby games hit the table, but most often it's mostly to have a puzzle to figure out together, or to have some sort of just light gaming, party cards, something like that that's light. So that's a whole nother group. And of course, then playing with your family. Families are also cooperative games, but it's a lot of adventures to go on together. Something to do where we can really get into the characters and play where we are assisting each other to accomplish this big adventure. And it really gets into that aspect of it, playing with families. So I noticed that there are different groups. So I'm wondering if people in those groups would be as cross-compatible into the other groups, or if it is something where they would find their niche and they would want to stay with that specific niche. So those are the three examples kind of the different groups I have. And kind of as I was working on these notes, I said I kind of realized these differences in these groups. So that leads me to my questions for you guys, kind of to seed the discussion here. First of all, just looking at this, how important is that? How important is gaming variety? Is it okay to have one type of games, Euro games or party games, or take that games, card games even? Is it okay as a gamer, as someone who enjoys this hobby to its fullest, or to the appropriate amount for that person? Is it okay to kind of focus in on one genre of games, or should gamers push themselves to try more things and be more of an omnigamer? What do you guys think, and what are your experiences? Are you guys omnigamers? Are the players that you play with omnigamers, or do you see people in your groups that kind of coalesce to one genre of games? And does it hurt the hobby for that reason? The other thing too, if you're an omnigamer or not, I want to know, what is your favorite category of board game to play? Is there a general consensus among us, those of us who maybe congregate towards one type of game? Is there a certain type of genre that we do congregate towards? Or even as omnigamers, are there certain clusters of groups of people? Like, even being a self-professed omnigamer, when I go to a bigger convention and there's a room full of like war gamers or stuff that are playing big hex encounter war games on a table for 8 hours a day, I still steer clear of that room. So even being someone with an incredibly wide breadth of gaming that I will take on, there are still types of games that I won't partake in. So perhaps I'm not as awesome as I thought I was there. And so how much more awesome than this are you? Or are you the same amount of awesome? So that's the other question. And lastly, just circling around, is there really a benefit to being an omnigamer, both for your own personal fulfillment, the fulfillment of your group, and the health of the hobby? So those are the questions I put forth to you. Let me grab my FunTime web browser searching tool to go and misspell TMG. Wow, that's impressive. All right, so we already have 8 instances of the old tag here. We've kind of a smaller crowd that's trickling in. So let's start at the beginning of the chat with the first person who uses the hashtag Trevin Taylor, who I recognize from the audience, so it's always good to see you, Trevin, who uses the hashtag TMG with a period after it. So really his statement is period. Perhaps he was just giving an example of the hashtag. Regardless, thank you for your contribution to the discussion, Trevin. I will take that punctuation and apply it towards the rest of the conversation best I can. But let's continue on to Darth, who joins us again. Always good to see you, Darth, who says, I believe that my gaming group has only one of its original members, other than me, of course. So having a wide array of games has allowed us to appeal to all of the newcomers. Darth, there you go. That launches this conversation right off in a direction that is kind of an interesting, different branch to this, is the idea of, is it more important to be an omnigamer if you are running the group? as opposed to just, if you're hosting, had you better be an omnigamer, because if you host just one genre of games, are you going to be alienating others? So is this an extra burden that gaming hosts should think about, or is it not important? And I also think that it's interesting. You mentioned that having a wide array of games has helped you appeal to the newcomers. So I'm wondering too, does it depend on the type of gaming group you're trying to run? Sounds from this one sentence description, it sounds like your gaming group tries to have, tries to reach out to newcomers and tries to really bring in new people. But is the reason that you have had, even with reaching out to new people, you say that the gaming group still has only one, other than you, one of its original members. So it makes me wonder, is it a fool's errand to try and be an omnigamer? Because does it still lead to as much turnover in the group? Would we actually have less turnover if we focused on one genre of game? Is this feeling that being an omnigamer is more healthy for the hobby? Could it actually lead to more turnover because it prevents people from really digging into a genre they like? Quick aside and example, and then we'll go to the next statements here. The next chat is an example of this would be when I host. I haven't done it for a few months now, but when I was running the local game club in my town, I tried to always have like a game of the day that was varied in a good gateway game or something that I would teach or show to the people. And there was one trio of people that came, and they seemed to be enjoying the game club, and they were getting more involved, and all of a sudden they just disappeared and stopped showing up. And I heard from them one time, bumped into them, and I was like, oh, hey, I noticed that you haven't been able to come. And their response was, yeah, we really enjoyed the game club, but every time we came, it was something new, some new game. And we just wanted to play Ticket to Ride each week over and over again. And that's really what they wanted to do. And at the time, it absolutely dumbfounded me because I thought everybody that would be coming to these game clubs always wanted to see something new each week. And it didn't even strike me that there might be people that didn't want to have the omnigamer experience, and it actually drove them away. So, Darth, I have gone on a bit of a tangent from what you started there, but hopefully it kind of is woven together coherently enough that it will lead and further the discussion. But while we sit and let that simmer, let's move on to Amanda Panda, who barrels in to say, I think people are different. So if you are interested in one thing or love variety, it's all good. But if you are a reviewer, very specific person here, type of board gamer that Amanda mentions, if you are a reviewer, then it needs to be clear on your personal biases. That is interesting. How much should a reviewer's personal bias influence their opinions on games? I am trying to think off the top of my head. I know of one reviewer who I know pretty well who is much more into miniatures games and rolling and the rulers and the hex base and the unit trays and stuff, really into like Warhammer 40K and stuff like that. But he still gives very unbiased, well-balanced reviews of every type of game, from card games to everything else. So I'd hope, Amanda, I do agree with you. I do agree with that someone who's going to be giving their opinion on games should be clear on what their personal favorites there are. But at the same time, I would hope that it wouldn't be something, a person's personal bias, I would hope wouldn't prevent them from being able to review any game that came across that they wanted to talk about, because I'd hope that a reviewer would be able to have keep that in check and keep their own personal opinions and be able to look at the game and let the game stand on itself, stand on its own merits to say, does this game accomplish what it wants to successfully or not? So Amanda, I agree with a twist there, and hopefully that twist kind of made sense. I'm hoping they can keep their personal biases in check to let the game really stand on its own and not color their opinion. But I do believe that what you said has merit there, and I agree. Coming back to Trevin, who adds a few more letters to his previous punctuation pronouncement. Trevin says, being a single type gamer is dangerous. So Trevin gives us some words of caution here. If the game falls out of style, then your player base is gone. Oh, Trevin, the game falls out of style. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. But I'm going to challenge you, Trevin. This is personal challenge mode to you, Trevin. What is an example of a genre of game that has fallen out of style, causing the people who are not omnigamers and only like that type of game to suffer because of it? Give me an example, because I think you're onto something there, but I can't think of anything myself, so I'm making you do the work for me. So give me an example of what you're thinking of a style of game that's fallen out of favor and negatively affected the people who enjoyed that genre of game. In the meantime, let's move on to a TMG of himself. Tim loves board games, which I realize is not a TMG, it's a TLBG. Letters. All right. Tim, regardless, joins us to say that I consider myself an omnigamer, which is great, since I'm also the library for my group. Some groups will do better with party games, some will only do take-that games, and it's frustrating, and it leads to exclusion. So I'm wondering if Tim is onto something here with something we touched on already. The people who run the gaming clubs, like Darth and Tim and I and others, are people that are prone to run gaming clubs the ones usually with the larger gaming libraries, or and therefore the more of the omnigamers, and therefore does it mean that an omnigamer is more likely to have a larger gaming library? With the amount of games that are available in the market today, you can go out and you can fill a whole wall shelf full of social deduction games, just with those. So with the library and options in board gaming that are available in every genre today, can you be focused on one genre that you like and still have as large of a board game collection as someone who is just an omnigamer? That is a question that I do not know the answer to, and would probably require some polling or something. I am X type of gamer, my collection size is blah, or something like that. I don't know. So we'd have to get in some in-depth data polling to really find out. But it is something, though, that Tim, that your statement there led me to that train of thought. So thank you very much for the contribution to the conversation. Amanda starts to get the meta game conversation really meta here by responding to Trevin, I don't think if games fall out of style that they will lose games to play or people to play with. So, all right, Trevin, the heat is really on you now. Amanda's calling your bluff, looking for example. But here is Trevin's example, because Trevin says, Amanda, say that to the dead CCG players. And I'm going to take a leap in logic here, so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming you're referring to a dead CCG game and not like zombie dead players of the game. Trevin, I don't know, though. I'm not buying it yet. I'm not buying it yet, Trevin, because the CCG is not a dead format. There are dead CCG... They're compartmentalizable, customizable card games or something. There are dead CCG games, certainly. But the CCG format in and of itself is thriving still. Magic is still a top-selling game. So if a certain CCG game falls out of favor, are those people out of luck, or do they just migrate to a different, better CC card game? There's two C's in CCG. Do they just migrate? So I'm thinking, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say that the CCG format, even though certain games in that format have died out, that the format itself absorbs those players into other CCG games. Just for the sake of this argument, I'm going to say that we need a better example of a format that has fallen out of favor. So back in the hot seat, Trevin. So while you stew on that, I'm going to continue on. Another comment here from Tim, who says that variety is beyond important. Okay, so here we go, back to being the omnigamer. Variety is beyond important. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, but not everybody is that open to new and different things. So is the variety important in the respect that it gives you a larger library of options for people you game with to choose from? Or is variety beyond important because it gives those people who aren't open to new and different things access to games that introduce new and different things? Which of those two things does that really refer to there? I mean, I can see it meaning both, but I welcome you to come in and kind of elaborate with any examples you have. Either way, that's you've seen that affect people in your game group. So, but let's continue on. As I'm giving everybody homework here, just throwing out homework for everyone. Let's see if I can give out some homework to Amanda, who says, I'm an omnigamer because I am the game teacher and have multiple game groups to play with. But my favorite are worker placement, and I'll stay away from war games as well. Well, there we go. There we have kind of another example here of from our little discussion group that we have growing and going on here. Another person that is the game teacher, the game host in a way, and that leading to more that omnigamer attitude and that omnigamer larger collection. So cause or effect, or is it still, in your experience, is it is it something that's still inconclusive? The only thing I can conclude at this point is that there's a tiny fly flying around between me and my microphone and monitor every now and then. And so if I all of a sudden go crazy and start throwing punches at my monitor, it's not you guys. I'm trying to catch this little fly. But it seems to be leaving me alone for the moment, which will allow me to continue on. Tim uses the hashtag to also remind us that, oh yes, I am that awesome. So Tim, I'm glad that you are on board with our level of communal awesomeness. That's nice to know that we all have that in common. So see, along with board gaming, it's another thing we all have in common. Darth mentions, it may not be my favorite style of game, but the style that I have found the greatest success and variety in would be short games, because they are less intimidating with a lower commitment level. Well, Darth, that's a really good example, because short games, to me, doesn't even mean a genre or category of games, like your worker placements, your hidden movements, your social deductions, etc. A short game is, any game can be short, no matter what genre or category it's in. So that actually puts a nice little twist on this whole thing, talking about short games. And I would agree. I know I myself, with, when I have hosting duties or limited time or playing with the family, it does seem like I am actually drawn towards short games often as well. So, and again, so there's a whole, not even a genre of theme or mechanisms, but just play length can be a factor in this too. And I do enjoy a good, hearty, long, in-depth game. I would love to play a 6-hour game of Twilight Imperium if I can get the people and the time together to make that work. But it just doesn't happen enough. But so short games are what I congregate to, like you. But I would still welcome that variety. So the variety is still there, even if we're drawn to one thing, 99% of the time. So that's a really good point there about length and how it's not necessarily, can be something that you're drawn to, and it's not necessarily a genre or a category. Trevin mentions, I like video games. Board games are both art and, oh wait, he didn't say I like video games. He just says like. He's making a simile. He's not doing a personal opinion. He's giving us a simile here. Like video games, board games are both art and technology. New mechanisms arrive, new components become available. If you stay with a single game, you'll miss out on new innovations that you may like. That's a really good point. Innovation. You know, I'm wondering too if it is becoming impossible not to be an omnigamer, because the lines between Eurogames and Ameritrash games that used to be much more solid lines are becoming blurred. And even within games, I remember you had, when Dominion came out, it is a deck builder. And then you had other deck builders come out. And then there was a whole bunch of deck builders. But now you got games like Clank that take deck building and combine them with a board or trains or all these other games. And not just deck building, but it seems every genre is starting to blur the lines with each other. And you'll have games that are no longer able to be described by one mechanism. They have to be described, or genre, they have to be described by multiples. You know, this is a worker placement deck building game, and you can't separate those two. And those innovations, like Trevin kind of mentioned here, these game innovations that are happening, I think are making it perhaps even more difficult not to be an omnigamer. Because if you do play and do have any sort of interest in new games that are coming out, you're going to have to start mixing, matching, and blending these genres together. So Trevin, you make an absolutely good point there. And as long as you don't have your head in the sand or your head stuck in a box of random game off the shelf, 5 tribes, and you're like, I only play 5 tribes and I don't play anything else. I don't even play the expansions. I only play 5 tribes. Get out my face. As long as you don't have that level of blinders on and you're open to any type of new games experiences that are coming along, I think you're right, Trevin. The innovations are leading to making the omnigamer more of the norm, perhaps. So thank you for your contribution on that. Let's continue on with the next chats from the group that we have assembled here today. Amanda again mentions that omnigamers are good for those who usually teach games in a group. For the industry, omnigamers help keep innovation in gaming, in my opinion. Omnigamers help keep innovation in gaming. Interesting. I'm wondering then too, we've talked about a little bit the possibility that the omnigamer is the one who facilitates teaching and hosting game events, potentially, not saying that's a written rule, but for the sake of conversation. We've mentioned that omnigamers are potentially the ones that facilitate gaming groups and potentially are the ones that have the larger board gaming collections on their shelves. Is it possible then that the omnigamer also pulls off the hat trick and is more likely to become a game designer as well? That's another thing that I don't know. We would have to interview and poll game designers and ask them, what their favorite genre of game is and if they consider themselves omnigamers and how many different genres they play. But it's possible that perhaps the mindset of exploring more new innovations and things like that lead to tinkering and experimenting with game design. So maybe it is something that, if not leads to another, perhaps feeds in and on itself. So a good point there, Amanda. I like that very much. I'm going to give you 3 of the points that I was going to give to Trevin. So fortunately, I have a whole box here full of points, but 3 of them go to you. Okay, let's continue on, though. See who else can get some imaginary points here with Darth, who again says, maybe Trevin is like Benjamin Button and has just finished watching the Metagame 60 from a future that is already finished. Well, I thought I was going to make it through 1 episode without becoming frightened that perhaps reality is not what I think it is. But Darth, you have successfully put that thought into my mind, and now, especially as I read the future comments, the future comments from Trevin. Trevin posted comments in the past that I see in the chat in the present that I'll be reading in the future. Darth, you may be onto something. And yes, now I am afraid. But the only way to approach our fears is to trudge straight on into them. So I will continue forward through the chat towards Trevin's comments of Armageddon. Inevitable comments of Armageddon. Let's continue, though. Darth also follows up with part 2 of his comment that says, in my case, the gaming group turnover is due to the military nature of my community, where most residents live here for a maximum of 3 years. Oh, boom, right there. That makes total sense. Total outside factor coming in. So my little previous pet theory that I was developing about that, you completely obliterated it there, Darth. But that's good. So that we weren't thinking of outside factors that could totally affect this. Let's see what else can affect this conversation with the next thing from Amanda, who also addresses Trevin. Maybe the TMG could be Trevin metagame. I don't know. Amanda says, Trevin, is there a reason that the CCG gamers stopped playing? Maybe it's a problem with the CCG in general, or they like a different style. She makes a good point, Trevin. I await you to create further time anomalies and create more things in the current present that I will read in the future, and hopefully we will not create more wormholes together. As I work my way towards the Trevin statements of Armageddon, we have a statement here from Ragnarok, who joins us to say, in my particular playgroup, each member sort of has a specialization. One gets all the big heavy Euros, another really likes filler games, and another one goes crazy for kid-focused stuff. Oh, okay. Boom. Eyes opened. That's a really good point. Here we have more of the... I have been focusing on one person kind of running the show when it comes to game clubs and the libraries and sharing games and being a gaming evangelist. But Ragnarok, you show the total other side of that coin, which is, I think, really good, healthy for this conversation. And in play groups that are more of a communal based. I like how you mentioned each member has one sort of specialization. That is cool, not only because it helps create a bigger, more diverse gaming library, but I think it's cool because it hints that these gamers each have their own specialization and one type of game they enjoy playing the most and that they collect. But the fact that they come together in this group suggests to me that they are still willing to share their games with others and introduce others to the games they like best, and also try the games that they might not be their favorites or might be genres they're not familiar with. So Ragnarok, that communal group approach is actually, I think, perhaps an even healthier approach to creating a gaming club than just having one guy who has the large library. Because then you really get people picking and bringing games that they're excited in and getting a lot of different opinions and influences on the gaming club and really leading to new experiences for everyone. And I think that is really, really cool. And so thank you very much for sharing that, because that added a whole new kind of wrinkle to the way I might approach running my own gaming events in the future. So I really appreciate that. Awesome. And now it is time for the Trevin comment that was in the future, but is now the present one that he wrote in the past. So, I know, I hope I'm not building this up too much. Hope it's not another period that you wrote, Trevin, because that would be kind of an anticlimactic thing. But Trevin mentions, anyone know a single type gamer whose single type is a theme, like only zombie games without respect to mechanisms? Does that even count? I'm going to say no. And by no, I mean absolutely yes. I do think that that counts, because I think that's a totally valid question to add to this conversation. Because I think that omnigamer, we've been talking a lot about mechanisms, or genres of game mechanisms, worker placement versus party games versus social deduction, stuff like that. But even the broader strokes, Ameritrash versus Euro games, if those were, if you were to split all gaming into 50% with each of those. Types of games, thematic, that's a whole third layer, a third way that someone can be an omnigamer or not. I think it's totally valid. What if someone only likes zombie games? I have a friend who really digs Cthulhu and, gets Cthulhu stuff. Oh, no, Doctor Who stuff. I have a friend who would play any Doctor Who game that you put in front of them, no matter what it was. And they're not even really hardcore gamers, but they love Doctor Who to the point where any Doctor Who game, and it seems like there are more of them coming out, if we were to invite them over, any Doctor Who game that hit the table, no matter what mechanism it used, would be played to its fullest potential, just devoured. And, maybe they might not like it afterwards, but they're definitely going to give it a chance. So, yeah, Trevin, genre, thematic thing is definitely something I think that someone could be an omnigamer or not towards. I think it's more rare. Definitely more rare, but definitely I think it is valid to the conversation. Amanda is also continuing the conversation on the CCG aspect of this, kind of one of our threads we have woven through this episode here. Amanda also says to Trevin that you can still play a CCG even if they don't collect the new cards anymore. So that is a very good point. Even a dead CCG can still be played by those people who played it because they will continue to have the cards. They just won't get new cards. So another nail in the coffin for the CCG argument. So we'll continue to try and find a replacement answer to that question that's puzzling us all very much. Let's continue on, though. Trevin asks about roll and move. Roll and move? Is that dead yet? Oh, you make a good point there, Trevin. Okay, roll and move. I wouldn't say, I'm going to go out on a limb. I wouldn't say that roll and move is dead, but it's definitely on life support. And the reason I say this is because I played a game I can't remember what it was, but I had roll and move elements to it that surprised me. Oh, Monopoly Gamer, which is based on Monopoly, of course, which is a roll and move. But even Monopoly Gamer had this flood of, this wave of popularity, a wave of people interested in it and talking about it. And it's a roll and move game. I'm also thinking of Protect the Barrier Ghostbusters game, also called, it's got another game, something tricky, go get the loot, or I can't remember what the other version of the game is called. But the Ghostbusters Protect the Barrier game is also very heavily relies on roll and move. It determines how far you can move on each of your turns. And the non-Ghostbusters original version of this game, I saw just earlier this week, is getting an expansion. So even some roll and move games, even though it's rare, they still have enough of a following that they'll hit the hotness on BGG. Reviewers will talk about them and get excited about them. They'll still get expansions. They're still showing up in stores like GameStop. So yeah, I don't think that the roll and move is dead, but I definitely think it is wounded, and a game that depends solely on it probably won't sell, but definitely something that still persists to this day. So, nice try, Trevin, but no, that's not the answer either. So let's continue on. Darth asks, how omni must I be to be an omnigamer? For example, 18XX holds no interest for me, but does that disqualify me if I love Zaya, co-ops, patchwork, Dominion, party games, etc.? That is an excellent question, Darth, and I think that is one that is going to have a different answer for everybody. But I think that is like the core crux question about being an omnigamer. How many genres, categories, mechanisms, what have you, how much variety do you have to like in order to be able to be qualified as an omnigamer? I don't think that line actually exists. I think that trying to create those types of boundaries is kind of pointless in a way sometimes, if I tip my hand a little bit there. But I think it is an excellent question to ask, because what qualifies, someone might just say, oh, I like 2 different games. That makes me an omnigamer. Someone might say, I like everything except social deduction, and then they're guilty and can't sleep at night because they think they aren't an omnigamer. So I don't think that it is something that would be fair to actually pin a number on. And I think that is a really good question that needs to be asked. So thank you for asking it, Darth. Let's continue on to a question here. Whatever it's called, it has a question mark on it, so I'm going to say it's a question. A question from David, who joins us to ask, what makes an omnigamer, though? Really? I enjoy a variety of game types because I tend to enjoy games when the group I play with is enjoying the game and not like it when other people aren't having fun. So if I played in one group of people, I could quite happily play one game type only. David, that is fantastic. And that is my same experience as well. I think I mentioned at the top of the show, I mentioned that lots of times, I'd say 75% of the time, when I enjoy a gaming experience, it's really because of the people I'm gaming with. The game activity itself is just kind of a mechanism, for lack of a better word, to facilitate the experience of playing with those people and just having some socialization with them. So perhaps there's even a fourth layer. We've talked about theme. We've talked about mechanisms. We've talked about categories of games. Perhaps there is a fourth way to be an omnigamer, and perhaps that fourth method is the amount of different people that you play with. Because if you play the same game with 36 different people and have 36 different experiences, but with that same game, does that make you an omnigamer? You know, or if you play a bunch of different games, but with the same people, you know, that for all intents and purposes, it's been assumed that that would make you an omnigamer. But the other way around, one game with 36 people, omnigamer or not. And if you need to excuse me, I think I found out where that fly went. I think it went down my throat. So I'm going to try and wash it down my throat there. And continue on, hobble through the last 20 minutes here of our discussion by resetting my chat comments and continuing on to the next cluster O hashtags that I see. Nope, Fly is still here. Good job, Fly, flying around, looking for stuff to eat and land on. Cool job, Fly. Also cool is a statement by Ryan, who joins us, to say, I try to have 1 or 2 games in each category that I really like. This helps keep the size of my collection down while keeping me feeling satisfied. So that's a really good approach to this. Lots of times, myself included especially, our collections can just kind of grow out of control. So actually having a methodology to keep 1 or 2 games in specific categories and cull out the rest, it's a very interesting approach. Something I'm looking at my game shelf here. Perhaps I should try that. You may have inspired me, Ryan, in a very dangerous way, but I like it. Okay, let's continue on to Sean. Sean says, as the only quote-unquote board game ambassador that I know, I try to keep multiple games from each genre so I can sell a gaming night to almost any group, you know, used car salesman style. What's it gonna take for me to get into a copy of 5 Tribes today? That type of approach. So that goes right along there with what Ryan just said, you know, keeping multiple games. It sounds like Ryan might be a little more disciplined in just 1 or 2 as opposed to just multiple. But it also, I think, is interesting that you keep them around for that specific purpose of trying to put together, oh, this person might like this genre of game. But now, out of the multiples of that I have, which one can I pick that I think will be the best fit? So it sounds like you kind of have it where you have them almost as ammunition to use to target a certain person to find that best fit, which I think is completely a valid approach. Follow-up question I would have for you, Sean, would be, what, just out of curiosity, what's your success rate? What's your percentage of being able to nail it? To say, I think you would look really nice driving around in a Descent or a Ticket to Ride. How often do you nail it with that? And how often does it turn out that the person actually threw you a curveball and likes something else, a different game or genre instead? Let me know either in the comments or in the chat or in the comments below if we run out of time. Amanda also says that she thinks that Ryan's idea is great. But if you are not an omnigamer, then how many of the same mechanism or genre is too many? That, I think, is the $34 question, Amanda. How many do you need if you are not an omnigamer? Also, how many bugs can fly down your throat and while you can continue talking coherently? We'll find out the answer to both, hopefully, as we continue through the comments. Trevin says, not to undercut myself. Oh no, please, Trevin, go right ahead. Not to undercut myself, but Talisman is still played, and it's roll and move. Very good, completely fair example there, Trevin. So no, I don't think that undercuts you at all, because we were giving other examples of roll and move. So let's continue on, because apparently that fly wants to hear more of what Trevin has to say. So the only way to get past it is to continue through the chat. Talisman. And the chat jumped a little bit, so I apologize. Undercut. Undercut. There we go. All right. Oh, and I apologize. I'm seeing some dropped frames. I apologize for that. I did tweak the settings, so I think it's happening less, but I think I could tweak them a little more. Just FYI, every time that we have an episode where the frames drop really bad, I notice that there's a Windows software update when I turn off my computer that day. So I'm wondering if Windows, when it has an update to download, it just says, I don't care what you're doing on the internet, I'm downloading this update. I wonder if that just completely messes up our live stream. It's been like the last 3 out of 3 times we've had a lot of dropped frames. There's been a Windows update immediately after. So anyway, I apologize profusely for any interruption like that. John joins us to say his definition of an omnigamer. And he says, an omnigamer is a person who will say, I'll play anything once. I think it's a very good definition. What if the game is axe, who's got the axe? Would you play that once, even if you're an omnigamer? I don't know if I would, and I consider myself an omnigamer. So are there limits to that? Well, I'll play anything once? Or to be an omnigamer, in your opinion, John, would you have to accept any game at least once that came out? Any game. Chutes and Ladders hits the table. Snakes and Ladders hits the table. Snakes and Latte hits you while you're sitting at a table. What would you do in those situations? Let me know, either in the comments afterwards or during the show here. In the meantime, let's take a note from Darth, who says, Chaz is not only an omnigamer, but also an omnivore. Watch out, fly. That's right. I showed that fly that I not only would eat some celery, but I would apparently devour the fly itself right along with it. So I'm feeling really, really good about that. Sounds really healthy to me. So let's continue on here. Sean mentions, my success rate has been pretty good. Talking about the used car salesman of trying to peg what game a person would like out of the multiples of each genre he keeps. So my success rate has been pretty good. Having multiple games from each mechanism or type usually means that I have light or medium or heavyweight games of each one. So we can test drive, continuing the used car salesman analogy, we can test drive and find a good fit pretty quick. Fair enough. And I think that's a good approach. That's something I hadn't thought of even within the multiples of each genre, having a light, medium, and heavyweight version of something in that genre. It's a really good approach. I am a bit jealous of your approach there, and I hope to be able to steal that idea for my own use very, very soon. So thank you very much, Sean, for giving me that idea to take. Okay, let's continue on. Let me do another, I think we've almost caught up here to our TMG hashtag comments, which is great because we're at the last 10 minutes of the show here. But we're not done because we have a statement here from David, who says, an excellent question. Are people that watch the metagame more likely to be omnigamers? And David, that is an excellent question and an excellent point. And honestly, in my tiny withered heart of hearts, I think the answer to that is yes. This is something that's actually come up in a lot of our live discussions. Is I have wondered, the people that are watching and participating in this show are people who would watch and participate in board game live streams. And so I think it skews a lot of our data that way. And so, yeah, I think that we probably do have a larger propensity, a larger percentage of omnigamers in the crowd in the discussion, and probably even watching this after it goes live. So, yeah, there's that. I think that's a completely valid question there, David. Completely invalid, though, is the amount of little pop-up error messages about our stream quality that I'm starting to get. So I think that our stream, unfortunately, is starting to deteriorate. And again, I apologize for that. I think we made some improvements to the quality. We were on a roll last year. We did like 25 episodes in a row, it seemed, where we had no dropped frames, which was great. So I think there are the software got updated and settings changed. So I think I need to go and fine-tune the settings a little bit more. But if you have made it this far into the episode, even with our potential live streaming syncing problems, I want to thank you for coming by and sharing your time with us. And I want to welcome you to also feel free to continue this conversation either in the YouTube comments below or over on the Pair of Dice Paradise or Dice Tower. There it is. Pair of Dice Paradise or Dice Tower Facebook pages, Twitter feeds, what have yous. Any social media that you're plugged into, feel free to plug into us. And in the meantime, until our next time that we get to come together, I want to thank everybody who's been stopping by. And hopefully sometime again soon, we will have a chance to play another round of the metagame with the YouTube live streaming chat. Until then, I have been Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise. Take care, and talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.